stove is not on. She always finds corners to hide in. Right, it's snowing, but I'm not going to let it stop me. I started running back in October and then got very sick for a couple of months. But I'm determined to do it, and Friday's the only day when both kids are at Nunu's, so I can actually do it with the help of my trusty Couch to 5K app from the NHS. Come on, Peppa! I love the way she doesn't hardly even need to run. It's quite hilly around here. So the driveway's flat, but the rest is a bit like that. But I did it. Right, time to get ready for work. And whilst the kids are out today, I'd like to make the tiles. That's my objective.
Okay.
And then I
finish them all.
Well, there's only a few actually. I can finish them. I can't finish them, but I can make them. And then
you have to blow how to dry them.
Yeah. Right. I thought this piece of paper was bigger, but it's not. But it'll give us an idea. And so you're planning your piece of wood to go to here?
Yes, it was 11 centimeters, you said?
About that, yeah. I'm going to attempt to make the tiles to fit these gaps here. Because I think it could look quite nice. And I think my only issue is the shrinkage of the clay, because last time I did it, I calculated the size using what was advertised on the clay, but it actually shrank way less.
Yeah.
So I'm going to allow in some a bigger or smaller grouting thing.
Yeah, I think you can get away with that.
A reasonable, but it's only a move of 1 or 2 millimeters.
Yeah.
So what I'll probably do is leave, say, 2 millimeters for grouting, but it'll probably end up being more or something, or the other way around.
I think it would probably look right to make them the width.
They need to be square. That's the problem.
Yeah, but you can.
Yeah, but you said you wanted it the width of the top one. So if they're going to be that high,
No, I mean for the. I mean only for the top.
I see the height. Yeah. Right. No, but I thought what I was looking at was that the proportion of the tiles could be.
Yeah, but I think you can. The top band can be different from the rest.
It can't, because if you want square tiles, then that means that the other ones are bigger, and they won't be in line with each other.
No, because the ones at the top can be rectangular, as long as they're the same width as
I think they all need to be square.
I don't think so. Okay. Quick.
What?
Well, you did them.
I'm going to stand and plan them and measure them now.
Ah, okay. I thought you were doing that.
No! So we've got two design options. This was the original idea of having square ones. And you'll see that they are aligned with how big we're going to have the top of the top plank.
Okay.
and the bases, so it's quite, yeah, that's what it looks like. This is the other option. It is a lot more fancy. So what I've done is, what you can't see here is that the idea was, that's the metro tiles idea.
I would tend to say more square.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, I think they're nice and simple, the square
yeah.
ones. It's just if you liked the idea of having something a bit more...
No, I think it would be better to make it simple.
Do you know how long it took me to draw those blinking metro tiles and put...
Okay, do the metro tiles then.
I wouldn't have thought about it unless you said it, but yeah, I think I like that better, personally.
But now you drew the other ones, I think you should do the other ones.
I think that's simpler like that.
It's a waste
Of my
of your
15
drawing time.
minutes drawing them, yeah.
I think I'd go for square. Beautiful drawing though.
Now that we've decided what we're going to do, I have to just go and calculate some shrinkage, because they shrink when they're drying and when they're cooking, and I'm going to do it roughly, and then I'll have the exact sizes, and you can make me my mould if you don't mind. I finally worked out my sizes. What was difficult was because last time the shrinkage was not as much as advertised, but I can't remember exactly how much it was, and it will be different every time, very slightly. And so I've had to do, because there's a minimum and a maximum gap we can really have and still be feasible, I've had to do a probability kind of, I've worked out exactly what sizes we start with and what percentages it could potentially shrink to. And the good news is I need my moulds for exactly 12 centimetres by 12 centimetres. Call me when you're done.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, bye.
Done. I hope Amy's happy with this. Let's go and show her. Here you go. You're
Thank
happy
you.
with that?
Yeah, that looks just right. This is my trial tile. Right, let's try and make a plaster of Paris tile. Well, I'll leave that, let it dry, and then it's a bit late today, got to go and get the kids, so I'll try engraving it next working day. Amazingly, I found the sketches of my original tile design from a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, which has enabled me to this is my original drawing, and I've been able to now calculate the shrinkage, which is this huge relief, because hopefully it's going to be roughly the same shrinkage. So it turns out 12 centimetres was perfect to achieve what I wanted. This was the plaster of Paris mould we did on Friday, and I'm now going to attempt to take it out of the mould without breaking it. Marc assures me this should work. Right. There we go. Nice. So now what I need to do is transpose my original design. I need to adjust it a little bit because this is ½ centimetre bigger than it needs to be. And also because I'm going to be doing the design in relief now, I want it to be slightly different than when I was carving it in. These large bits I won't have sticking up. I'm going to draw out my design, sand this off, draw it on, and then see how things go. Because my fear is this is not going to be solid enough to be able to press in the clay without it breaking. It needs to be perfectly flat on the bottom so that when I exert pressure on it, it doesn't crumble and crack. I'm going to attempt to do my carving with a tool that's used for lino cutting. I haven't got quite a fine enough tool on the end of it that I want, but I fear this is going to be a matter of experimentation anyway. It just seems to be the most likely, because I need to be able to push the clay in, I need a reasonably wide V shape. Which will then also look really nice when it's got a glaze over it. I have never done any of this. With plaster, I did lino printing ages ago, so we're just going to have to see how it works. The stove is not on. She always finds corners to hide in. This is fairly standard. This is why I can't really achieve anything these days. So I'm just going to stop now and play with her for a little bit, and then come back when I got some time. But it's quite a promising start. Oh, I have to fight through Marc's plants. He overwinters in here. I'm back at the scene of my tile experiments, the tinting experiments. I haven't actually been in here since then, and I didn't clear it up because we were very busy. But today should be a much more straightforward process. It's making the plain tiles for the splashback, which, apart from one shaping issue, should be fairly straightforward. This is the first time that I'm going to have to try to be very precise about the depth, which could be interesting. We chose a sink that had a beautiful little feature at the back of it, not realising I'd been making my own tiles at the time. And normally what you do there is you buy your tiles and then you cut them to shape. But I thought I might have a go at actually making them to shape, which would save a job later and might look quite nice. The complicated part is that I don't exactly know how much shrinkage is going to be. And so I've got to try and work in approximately 5.5% shrinkage from the outline that I traced up there, and then cut my tiles. Could be interesting. This is the profile of it, plus 4.7 centimetres on the other side. Each tile is hopefully going to be down to 11.3 centimetres, and we can adjust a bit of this with the grouting. It's not a problem when there's no design involved, but when there's an edge, it could get tricky. It might fail, in which case I just have to remake some. I have to now try and make these 11.3 centimetre spaces into an 12 centimetre one, with the view that it will shrink. I think the only way to do it is to cut these out. There will be another stage when I can adjust this, because with the shrinkage, the majority happens during the drying process, not the firing process. And so I'm erring on the side in all of this with slightly larger than I need, because I can then put them in place as a test and sand away before firing what I don't need. Right, I need to come back later and do a little bit of tidying up on it. I prefer to do that when they're a tiny, tiny bit drier. And then I just need to go and press the patterned tiles and wait for them to dry. I've had my lunch and I've finished carving my moulds in the plaster of Paris, and I've put it back into the wooden frame. Now, what I should have done is made a entire plaster mould if I was going to do pouring or pressing, but I didn't. On the other hand, I'm only doing a few of these, so I'm going to try pressing. I didn't know if it was going to work. And if that works, I can just trim the edges. I also read rather too late last night that you're supposed to have a mould release agent, which will help it get out of the mould, but I don't have that. So the next best thing is you hope that the plaster dries out, it draws the water out of the clay, and so it will shrink, and so I'll be able to remove it. But it does mean that I'm just going to have to come down here every few hours to do a different one. And it also means I will not know how successful this has been until a few hours' time. This is a bag of things that Kelly, who's a wonderful potter from Canada, has sent me, her spare things, and it's wonderful. She's the one that gave me all the advice on slips. I'll link to her work in the description. The name of this, they call it a kidney, and I've been wanting one actually, and Kelly sent me one, and I usually use my fingers, but you can use these much more effectively to smooth the surfaces and even up the edges after you've made your tiles. It's beautifully smooth. I've got Clement with me today, and I'm still going to attempt to make some progress, but it may be more slow going. Now, I loosened the wood on this so that I could let it dry more evenly, And I'm just hoping it's going to come out of the plaster now and that the plaster is intact. It's plaster. Oh. So I broke the plaster with my vigorous smashing, but the design is wonderful. I'm very, very pleased with that. Very pleased indeed. What I could do now is use this to make a new plaster mould. A bigger one, a thicker one.
I want to one, Mummy.
You want to see it? Do you think that's very beautiful?
Yeah.
I made that. It's going to go on the wall in our new bathroom. Rather than make a wooden mould, which would take a lot of faff today, what I'm going to try and do is make a mould that, I don't know how to describe it. Instead, before I just poured a flat piece of plaster and engraved on it. What I want to do now is make essentially a dish like this that I can then press the clay into, and a much thicker one. I'm going to make the mould from this, and then I might have to do a bit of extra carving. Essentially, I'm going to put it in and then pour the plaster around. And then I might have to cut it out, I might not. But the thing is that I have to make sure that the base of the tile is completely flat against the bottom, because I need to be able to take the plaster out. And I also need to make sure that it's the right thickness, which I didn't before. And for this particular tile, I need to make a thickness of just over 1 centimetre. To make a mould, I would like to have let this dry a little bit more, but it's so cold that it's taking a very long time to dry. So I'm going to risk pouring the plaster onto it. Right, well, I'm just going to give it a go. I need to make sure that it's placed in roughly in the middle and very well pressed down. I know, because I haven't been too careful about it, that I'm going to end up with some leakage of the plaster underneath, but it's so soft I can cut that away, I think. And I'm doing this well away from Clement, because he doesn't want to be anywhere near plaster dust. Risk it. Right, come on, let's do it. Well, that's not drying level, but hopefully it should have poured into the bits that it needs to be into. I'll come back in a couple of hours and see how that went, and see if I can prise it out without breaking things. Marc got this tractor from the rubbish dump the other day. Someone had left it there. And it's clearly what Clement would rather be doing than plastering, making plaster moulds and tiles. I'm a bit impatient to see how my mould has gone. Also, I can see from the bottom that there has been leakage of the plaster of Paris underneath the tile. So although it takes 24 hours to fully dry, it's been a couple of hours now, and I think I'd quite like to get it out of here so I can take off the bit before it gets too hard that's under the mould. Right. Oh. So the tile must have shifted as I poured it in when I was jiggling it. So it's going to be a slightly diagonal mould. I've cleared the edges around that so that hopefully it'll be easy to pop out once it shrinks a little bit. It's now a couple of days since I did the plaster mould, and I thought, well, I'll put it in the kitchen to dry and see if hopefully as the clay shrinks it'll pop out. And then I started to panic because it wasn't even slightly coming loose. I thought, what if the harder it gets, then I can't dig it out? Because one of my books said you need to dig out the clay mould. So late last night, I started digging out a corner of it. And I could see that the mould worked. And I thought, okay, great. I'll take it away from the fire and tomorrow I'll do it. And now this morning, it has pulled away from the edges and I've got a feeling it might even come out. I haven't tried it yet. You don't want to mark the plaster or damage it with a knife. Marc wanted to have a go at it with a knife last night. Well, there we go. Look at that. I mean, ignoring the problem that it's on the wonk completely, I don't think that'll be a big issue. It's come out really, really beautifully. I did want to just make a couple of adjustments when I saw the original clay tile, so I might carve slightly deeper into little bits of it. Also, this was a big problem. I think I didn't do it liquid enough, and so it's not flat. And I think I'm going to scrape and sand that until it's flat, because otherwise I will get the problem when I put the clay in and when I tap it with the hammer, the unevenness is more likely to make it snap. Whereas if it's flat on the ground, it won't. But what this means is the 10 base tiles for the sink in there done and drying. I've spent several days now polishing them up, finishing the edges every night and repacking them and keeping them flat. And now I've got the mould to make the final 5. So I'm very nearly done with the splashback.